Hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm Joe Rimmer. It's the 243rd Merseyside Derby this weekend, and joining me today is Theo Squires. How are you, Theo?
All right, Joe, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I'm Paul Gorst. How are you?
Yeah, drenched. Got caught in the rain before, but...
Yeah.
And the traffic.
Yeah, in good spirits ahead of the derby.
Yeah, Storm Babette taking on...
When you walk through the storm.
Yeah, yeah, I like that, well done. Yeah, well...
Is that going to be your intro tomorrow?
Yeah, Liverpool might have to get through a storm tomorrow with Sean Dyche at Anfield and Everton, so it's going to be an interesting one. Plenty to discuss, but we'll start with a bit of team news, a bit of injury news. As expected, Ghosty, they're going to do it without Andy Robertson, who looks like he's going to be out for a little while with shoulder surgery after dislocating his shoulder on international duty for Scotland. Another reason why they should ban international football, but there you go. Yeah, tricky one for Liverpool, really, isn't it? I mean, I know Kostas Tsimikas is a sort of good backup, but you know he's one of your main players, isn't he? Out injured for such a length of time is a really frustrating one for Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, it's huge body blow, isn't it, to Liverpool? You know, you're looking at it and you kind of made peace with the fact that he wasn't going to be fit for the derby, especially when you've seen him in the shoulder sling. I think that was a picture from the Mirror earlier this week. But
getting a Greg's in.
Yeah.
It's nice that. Do you reckon Mona Nema puts Greg's
no,
on the end?
I don't think that'll be the Melwood snack station now.
He didn't need to worry about his player diet for a few weeks at least.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Bit of comfort food. Yeah. But now you're facing up to the fact that he might not be available for maybe the rest of the year, and then you're into January, right in the thick of it. He's going to come back after a lengthy layoff, whenever that's going to be, and it's just really disappointing news. You know, Liverpool have been okay so far with injuries. It's only early doors, but they haven't had too many to worry about other than Thiago and Bajcetic. You know, Thiago for me now is a little bit of a bonus whenever he is fit, and Bajcetic is still a young lad learning his trade who you can get by without. So Liverpool have done okay, but this is a huge blow to the prospects. Tsimikas does okay when he comes in here and there, you know, League Cup games, Europa League games, the odd Premier League game off the bench or whatever it may be. But now he's facing up to a spell where, you know, he's going to be Liverpool's Premier League left back for the next 10 games, 12 games, however long it is, maybe even more. And we've never really had that from him, have we? So I'd suggest it's probably the biggest test of his Liverpool career, you know, 3.5 years in, or just over 3 years. But at a time when Liverpool are defending differently as well, because we know that with the way that they play with the right back situation and moving into midfield, that back three then has to kind of shuffle over and shift and become a centre back almost, as well as a kind of attacking left back who looks to get crosses in. So it's going to be a big test for him long term. I'm not too concerned about tomorrow, if I'm honest, because I think he's good enough to come into the Liverpool team against, you know, a team who are in decent form, but they're not one of the top teams in the division, are they, with the greatest of respect to Everton. So it's a big opportunity for him, but it's also a big test. So I guess it's up to him how he handles it. The worry is, with the Europa League games coming up and the Carabao Cup game at Brentford, you know, he's going to have a rest. So where do Liverpool go then? Is it going to be Joe Gomez, Luke Chambers maybe, even Callum Scanlon, who was training with the first team this week? So plenty of discussion to be had around left back.
Does it shine a light, Theo, on essentially, you know, we know Liverpool wanted a left-sided centre half, maybe someone who could have operated at left back. I mean, look, I'm just looking the name up, but Mickey van der Ven was linked all summer. You could potentially have put him there. He could have come into the three. He'd have been quite a pacey option on his left foot. Does it shine a light on potentially a mistake Liverpool made this summer, not getting that player in?
It's debatable. Like, if Liverpool had signed Mickey van der Ven, that's 43 million on a player that isn't necessarily going to start. Like, he wouldn't have been the first choice at centre back like he is at Tottenham.
But isn't that just the going rate though? I mean, I kind of...
I'm saying it's the going rate, but it's a lot of money for Liverpool to spend on a player who wouldn't have been the starting 11 when you think Andy Robertson's missed so few games. You've already got a left back there in Tsimikas. It's only when you've got that injury thinking, oh, we should have had someone else. It's like, well, how many options is enough in each position? Like, there is still the argument that they should have signed another centre back who could do this job, because, like, as Gorsty's just touched on, Tsimikas' role, can he do this more defensive side? Because, like, he's a very good attacking fullback. His crossing is superb. Like, when he is in the team, he gets assists. But there's always those question marks about him defensively, about his physicality. Like, he doesn't give up trying to win balls back, but he just seems to be a bit suspect. He falls asleep at times, and that's a bit harsh of him, because at the same time you need a run of games to really show your credentials. And I think the longest run he's ever had in the team, Premier League wise, is 3 games, and that was last year when Robertson was having a couple of injuries around the derby at Goodison, the Arsenal game when it seemed everyone came off injured. Before that, it was only 2 games in a row here and there where Robertson had done his ankle at the start of the 21-22 season, and then when he got sent off against Tottenham later in that same year. So you need Tsimikas to come in and show that he can step up, that run of games you'll really see the best of him. But it's still question marks over his role in that side, because if Liverpool stick with this formation, he needs to be more defensively inclined. When they've had him in that setup before in pre-season, he was the inverted fullback. It was to complement Joe Gomez on the other side. So it is like learning on the job here. And while there's still options there, like Joe Gomez would be an option. There's a couple of talented youngsters, as Gorst he's mentioned. You're scraping the barrel, but then how many sides really have 3-4 quality options there who can be in those positions?
See, I would argue the best sides do, and I do think if they'd have bought that left-sided centre-half, then all right, it does seem like they have a lot of options, but the idea is that person would maybe eventually succeed Van Dijk, and maybe Liverpool's argument would be, well, go and find me that player, it's quite tough. But then that's down to preparation again, isn't it? And on top of that, then they could come in and play these games. I think it's interesting. I think Everton will certainly target that position tomorrow. Another name sort of hinted at through Klopp's press conference a couple of times, obviously you mentioned Scanlon, but Luke Chambers definitely seems to be somebody that Liverpool rate very highly. What have you seen of him, Gorst? Is he somebody that you think could challenge for that position?
Yeah, I haven't seen much of him this season, but seen quite a fair bit of him last season, and he's...
What type of fullback is he?
See, he is someone who you could potentially see playing as a third centre-back on the left side. He's not like a whippet of a fullback who gets up and down. He's very technically good on the ball and is capable of kind of operating in between that left side of centre-back and a fullback as well. So I think I'd like to see him in the Europa League. Liverpool got it all done and dusted, quite handy, which you'd expect them to. Say to beat Toulouse, for the remaining 3 games, you'd possibly look to see what Chambers could do.
It'd be a shame to lose, wouldn't it?
I was thinking that, but I'm not going to say it.
You're not going to say it at all.
I've ruined that. Nice. Ruined that. Start again.
But we fully expect Liverpool and not to have too many problems in this Europa League group. So maybe he could be someone who could get a little run out and see what he's all about, because I think Klopp said that himself today. Tsimikas isn't going to be playing. He's not going to be able to play every single game now that Robertson's out. So Liverpool are going to have to look inward. I've seen even less of Scanlon, but I know he's someone who's thought of very highly and was taken on the pre-season tour, wasn't he? And did himself no harm at all, from his appearances there. Someone who I think has surprised people by his ability to play a little bit further forward. I wouldn't suggest that he'd be doing that in the Liverpool first team, but I think at a certain age he's a bit more malleable tactically and versatile. So Liverpool do have players in there, but I think we'd be dressing her up to paint it in anything other than a massive disappointment that Robertson's going to be out now for an extended period.
It's an interesting one with Scanlon, because obviously they brought him in from Birmingham City a couple of years ago, and normally when they get these players from other clubs, to keep an eye on them. Like if they've signed this player, they think they're going to go all the way to touch the first team, as opposed to it's a bit different when they're coming through your own ranks from the very beginning. But when we have seen him either in the Football League Trophy or in pre-season, he was predominantly playing further forward, just because of the players they had at the disposal when they were making all those changes. Whereas at least we've seen Chambers in the first team picture in the more defensive role. I remember, was it the mid-season games Euro? He was like coming in at centre-back, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he played against Milan and Lyon in the Dubai friendlies.
But then he's still a young lad. And
how old's Scanlon? 18?
Yeah, he's like... He's only just come through, isn't he?
He wasn't long 16, I think, when they signed him. Yeah.
Okay.
But then, like Chambers, he has got that versatility, and he has come on leaps and bounds. Like he was being linked with Bayer Leverkusen on loan in the summer. I think he was linked with a couple of championship sides as well. And they were sides that tend to have the 3 at the back or those wing backs. And you think, well, he's a player who could be your wing back or could be your third centre back. But then it would be a huge ask to just put him in your team. He's had a good loan spell, didn't he, in Scotland last year? So maybe it is a chance where he could make that step. We've seen Kwanzaa do it after playing for Bristol Rovers last year. Connor Bradley seemed to be on the verge of doing it as well before his back injury. But it's still when he has had a few injuries already this season, the big ask if you had to turn to him beyond Europa League, League Cup.
Yeah.
So a lot of pressure on Tsimikas' shoulders to just stay fit.
Oh, certainly. In terms of Everton, Klopp was very complimentary to a side that, I mean, look, they've had their struggles, haven't they, last season? Some of the stats, certainly their XG stats would suggest that slightly better than where they've been this season. But Gorsty, does anything concern you about them? Where do you think they will come and attack Liverpool?
Well, I think they're going to be a slightly different prospect to the team that showed up in February. Dyche had long taken over, Addy, and I think he played Ellis Sims up front that night, and there was oceans of space between him and the nearest Everton player to him on that night. And I think Van Dijk was at Matip that night at the slippers on. In fairness, Calvert-Lewin has got himself fit, so he's going to be up there with Doucouré playing off him, which is how they've tended to go about playing away from home this season. And it seems to be, they seem to have stumbled on something at the moment. They've struggled to begin with, didn't they? They obviously got beat by Fulham, and then was it Wolves, and made it Luton a couple of weeks back. Really poor start to the season, but I've slowly got a foothold on things, and we're really good at Brentford a couple of weeks back. And I think Klopp hit the nail on the head really with the likes of Harrison and McNeil, potentially in the wide areas. They'll look to soak up the possession and try and hit Liverpool in the transitions and on the counter attack, and with Calvert-Lewin making things stick. They're certainly going to be a bit more of a threat than they were, last season. But I don't know whether, as the kind of weeks wore on, that I've started to believe that Everton are a serious threat to that Anfield record. On Monday, I was thinking, well, a derby's a derby, but Liverpool are great against Everton, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue. As the weeks wore on, I'm starting to talk up Everton in my own head, and I don't know whether listening to Klopp has made them a bit more of a threat in my own mind. But
can you imagine how unbearable Sunday's going to be if Everton win this derby?
Well, for certain Everton supporters who we know, but I think certainly more of a threat than they were last season. But you're still expecting Liverpool to be strong at home, and it'd be a massive shame if they don't win. Yeah,
I mean, it's one of them in my mind, Theo, that whenever Liverpool have turned over Everton quite handily, and thinking of Anfield 4-0s, some of the games away from home, the 4-1 at Goodison, it tends to be, I suppose that was under Rafa, but there was a time when Everton were really falling to pieces. It tends to be against managers who, Marco Silva, the 5-2 at home, Roberto Martinez with 2 4-0s, against managers who've tried to develop Everton as more of a football team. But I always think I'm primed for a slog when it's a Dyche, when it's a Moyes, when it's the type of manager who sort of buys into the dogs of war style mentality, and that's how I think Everton will come tomorrow. I think they will make it really, really difficult.
Well, Dyche has got some good results there, hasn't he, with Burnley in the past, like a couple of draws. He won in the pandemic year as well, didn't he?
Yeah, it was Burnley when the Liverpool's run, wasn't it?
So I remember a 1-1 at home early on in one season. It was quite a slog as well. But sorry, go on.
But you always know it's going to be that much of a challenge. Looking at what Everton are good at this year, they've got these strong wide players who can get balls in the box, and they've got the target man in Calvert-Lewin or Beto, and Doucouré can play off him. But they don't necessarily have the pace or like players that are gifted at running at you and really scaring your fullbacks. And this is where we've seen Liverpool struggle at times this season. I know Alexander-Arnold did so well against Matoma, against Brighton, but you think of Neto in the Wolves game and other wings. These at Bournemouth as well, that was one that was a challenge. So you think, well, they don't necessarily have that pace and ability to get in behind Liverpool, so they're going to have to be a bit different with how they set up. They are going to have to start quickly and force errors and then still just make those transitions work for them. But you think Liverpool, when they know what to expect, they've got the crowd behind them, they've had a couple of results where they haven't won recently, when they've had the extra day training after the international break, you just like to think it's going to be business as usual. Merseyside Derby, Anfield, Liverpool can put 3 or 4 goals past them, but you need to start well for that. There's always that doubt, that seed in the back of your mind that it could be the time the record comes unstuck, and if there's ever going to be a manager to do it, you feel like Dyche could be that one.
Well, with it being Dyche, just thought we'd quickly cover him and Jurgen don't always get on the best, do they? I always remember Klopp chasing him down the tunnel on one occasion. I mean, just seeing Dyche more closely since he's come to Everton, he's quite a sarcastic so-and-so. So I think I can understand why they might clash a bit. Can you remember anything that sticks out for you, Gorsty, between the two of them?
Yeah, I mean, but his Burnley team was always held up as this kind of bogey team for Liverpool, weren't they? And I think a lot of that stemmed from one win that they got in August 2016, was it?
Yeah, when Liverpool had about 85 shots and so 98% possession and still lost 2-0.
Yeah, like Clavin and Moreno in defence.
Yeah, it was that one, wasn't it? Early season in the old Toxic Thunder kit. But generally, Liverpool have found a way to work out Dyche's system, apart from that one-off win in January 2021, was it, when Liverpool were in a massive tailspin.
It's like a late penalty as well, so it's not
it was Ashley Barnes. I think
it felt quite different, that game. I never look at those pandemic run at Anfield. I mean,
it's easy to say, but I write off that entire season. There wasn't any fans there. It was just total nonsense. But
except for Alisson's header.
Yeah, apart from that.
Yeah.
But and Matt Phillips turning into Cannavaro.
Winning at Old Trafford. I mean, just right off the ones we don't like.
Yeah, right off the ones we lost. Yeah. I'll say Liverpool lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dyche and Klopp has got the potential for fireworks, hasn't it? Particularly when they are in charge of local rivals. But I wouldn't like to get on the wrong side of either of them, really. Having been on the wrong side of Jurgen a couple of times, don't like
about
it.
The same height as him, aren't you?
He's taller than me, but he's
probably got the reach.
Ferocious ferocity that I haven't got. And Dyche, I imagine Joe Thomas would be better equipped to tell you that you wouldn't fancy dressing down off him either. So
he likes Chris Beasley though, doesn't he? Dyche.
Does he?
Yeah, because he's turned up in a suit a couple of times early on, so he's made an impact on him.
Yeah. But potential for fireworks there. But I think Liverpool just if they don't let that kind of side of the game get to them, I think they've got enough quality to see Everton off without too many problems.
Well, let's talk fireworks. So let's talk. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit because we discussed this before the pod, but I've changed it in my own mind. So a good host mixes it up. Gives you top three, and don't steal my one because you know what my one is. Don't you steal it either.
I don't know what yours is.
Gives you top three Derby moments.
There we go.
We can't have dead space.
Moments or games?
Moments. I like moments because I think games we all know what sticks out, but moments can provide something different, maybe something you've seen that others haven't.
Alisson falling on the ball.
Oh, Alisson falling on the ball was brilliant, wasn't it? Yeah, it was brilliant.
The Origi, everything about the Origi thing was just hysterical, but I think I went for one this morning, didn't I? When Liverpool fans were singing for Rafa Benitez at Goodison Park, and Liverpool went on to win 4-1, and it was kind of half ironic, half with still a little twinge of admiration for him, and it was just a bit surreal, the Liverpool fans singing about the Everton manager's name in the away end of Goodison. And Liverpool were sensational that night, and I've always think of that derby as like one of the best ones at Goodison because they absolutely battered them.
Yeah. Theo, same question to you.
I'm going to go for a few slightly older ones, like Carroll at Wembley.
FA
Cup semi-final.
It was incredible.
That's got to be one. Yeah. There's a few around like Rafa's time with Liverpool, like Count's last minute winner at Goodison, when that was the one where Gerrard got subbed off and he was fuming. It was Lucas who came on and won the penalty. Was it Phil Neville scored
the Clattenburg game, which is quite famous.
Phil Neville got a couple of own goals, didn't he?
That Neville, that was in the 08 derby, wasn't it, when they had 08s? And that Neville own goal, sorry to nick you, but it was brilliant because the Gerrard sending off was celebrated like a goal. And then for Neville just rose and bang.
Such a good header.
Diverting that one into his net was a good one. But go on, sorry.
But the other goals in that game were incredible. Like, was it Harry Chewell and Garcia, just from outside the box, chipping the keeper? Like, Liverpool, as good as record as Klopp has, Benitez's was right up there as well. He's getting so many iconic wins there. They all just merge into one.
Do you remember the 2-1 at Anfield when Morientes hit that shot?
Yeah.
And people forget the shot.
Tim Howard was like scrambling. Was
and Garcia followed it in, didn't it? But that was one of those like greatest non-goals that Liverpool obviously managed to score from. But that shot was incredible. I mean, I've sort of done myself here because I've been thinking of my one, but didn't think of three. But the Lucas shot in the 4-0. At Anfield, I love that moment from derbies because again that was at a time when obviously Klopp hadn't been there long. Liverpool were really good that day, sort of took Everton apart. It was like a sort of preview of what could come under Klopp, and there was sort of like again a bounce about Anfield and just Klopp's reaction on the touchline and Lucas having that shot.
Imagine most managers would be like, oh no, I've got to pretend I'm serious here. Well, what are you doing that for? But he was just laughing his head off, 4-0 up.
And I remember Lucas laughing as well, and it was almost, how often do you get yourself into a position in a derby where everyone can have a buzz about someone having a shot that was badly hit. Other ones, I mean...
Fowler doing the celebration, the controversial celebration.
The controversial celebration was good, yeah.
Suarez's celebration.
Yeah, Suarez's dive. Storage at Anfield was great, 4-0. Gerrard's header.
Gerrard's hat-trick.
Gerrard's hat-trick.
This is just every single Merseyside derby in front of fans for the last 20 years.
No, Liverpool fans have been spoiled, haven't they, with what they've got against Everton. Like who was saying to Theo on the way to the press conference, it's obviously means a lot to us as people who cover Liverpool and the city and the fans and whatever, but like, I don't think the rest of the country are looking at this derby and thinking, oh, this was a big one. Like, it's get a bit feisty and that, but the record's just so lopsided. You know, it's unbelievable.
Well, it's funny because I was reading, we did like a pundit's predictions roundup piece, and there was various different ones, and Tim Sherwood's at the end, and Tim Sherwood just sort of said, you know, I know it's a derby, but I think all this stuff about derbies and form going out the window is nonsense. If this was any other football game, no one would be predicting anything but a Liverpool win, and that's what I predict. And I just don't.
The most sensible thing he's ever said.
Well, but I don't. Obviously, the results say that he's right, but there's a little part of me that thinks it's more the experience of a derby. It's more the sort of, there's a little bit of anxiety going in. They never, you know, those big wins were great, but a lot of derbies, people forget, they're not attractive games, they're not exciting, they're not fun. The 2-0 last year, I think of as like a great game. The year before was also 2-0, wasn't it? At Anfield, I remember that was a Sunday and it was just a slog until they finally made the breakthrough. So a lot of games, a lot of derby games feel like a bit of a slog. Yeah. And it's that feeling that I think that...
They're not enjoyable. You know, they're just there to be enjoyed, and then if you win...
You enjoy the result.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's why the Lucas moment I liked, because it's very rare that you enjoy something within a derby.
I think that's why people loved like the Origi goal so much, is because it was so bizarre. It wasn't so much... Obviously, it's great that Liverpool have won, and supporters are celebrating that, but it's almost the manner of it. Like, how many more different ways have Liverpool got in them to beat Everton?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, if they get through this one, and if they can win, they have a favourable run of games, Theo. I mean, Gorst and I were talking about it before. You're looking, aren't you, towards the next international break, thinking, obviously, crazy VAR events or injuries aside, Liverpool should be looking now, shouldn't they, to try and at least, if not top the table, at least be very, very close going into the next international break.
Well, you'd like to think you get maximum points from this run. If it was on paper, they do.
If they win the derby, then you're certainly thinking that, aren't you?
Because like earlier in the season, you might look at Luton a bit more anxiously, thinking, oh, they're going to be up for it, big test coming. But when you're October, November time, it's up, you're settled now, you know you're going down. Liverpool in there.
You know you're going down, Luton.
Just accept it.
It's not Brentford, Nottingham Forest. It's not like Liverpool of last year, where every home game for that winter spell into spring felt like a struggle. Like you'd fall behind early on, you had to really grind it out to get that result. So you'd like to think it's going to be maximum points, and if you're maximum points, even unbeaten, then you go into Man City after the international break, you're surely going to be top two. Like Arsenal and Spurs have got a much tougher run coming up. They're going to drop points. Probably expect City to be top. Like they just seem to be that much stronger than everyone, despite the fact they've just lost a couple of games. But just stay in the conversation and you can be happy.
That's the important thing, isn't it? You know, I think winning things and getting into good positions in the league, like Spurs now, it's about creating a momentum. And Liverpool have got an opportunity to do that. And once people start talking about you, you can tell the players believe it. And if they can get into the next international break in the conversation, that's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it, that you can't win the league, but you can lose it, you know, this early on. And it's just about staying in touch. I think if you'd have offered Klopp going into the October international break to be just a point behind Man City, he'd have snatched your hand off and probably would have assumed that he'd be second in the league. The fact that they're sitting quite handily inside the top four, having played Tottenham, Newcastle, Brighton and Chelsea all away from home. And even the home games, you know, West Ham and Villa aren't gimmies, are they? You know, they're kind of in that low, like second bracket, you know, in the Premier League.
They're two of the stronger teams this season in terms of how they're performing. Like, it's above expectations.
So Liverpool have had a difficult run, and the fact that they've done so well bodes well, I think, particularly with the new players settling in and, you know, the crazy red cards that have gone against them. You know, Liverpool, they've had 8 red cards since January 2019, and 4 of them came between August and September. So, you know, you'd imagine that will subside maybe they'll get the likes of Thiago back and Stefan Bajcetic, we know about Robertson. But other than that, Liverpool have got a decent bit of health. And with the games coming up, like we mentioned there, Luton and Forest at home and Brentford at home and Everton at home, you've got to take full advantage heading into that November break, and then you're looking at that City game as a massive one. And I think Liverpool have got it in them now to really just put everything that's gone before them to the back burner, all the Tottenham stuff and all the VAR questions and the red cards and all that. Just kind of forget about that now and just think about the next 4 games in the next few weeks. And I think they're good enough to be around the top when that comes around.
I think like the last couple of years where it hasn't gone for them, where they've had injuries, we can throw the red cards in now, that's when they've been dropping down the table and you think, where on earth are they going to finish this season? It's going to be a slog. But to still be in the top 4 when you're having the red cards, where you're now having those couple of injuries, where you've not exactly started well, but you still found a way to win and get the points, it shows that there is that mentality's back, that fighting spirit's back. They're in so much stronger position than they were this time last year.
And we know historically as well, the last 5 years, the last sort of 2-3 months of the season, they've been excellent, haven't they? Almost annually. So they know what that takes if they're still in contention in a few months' time. So it's just about, I suppose, we're not managers or anything like that, but maybe just approaching it in the little 4-game blocks. Yeah. And then once, after the November break, then we're really into the thick of it until Christmas.
It sounds like quite a lazy thing to say, but I always see people say, you beat the dross, don't you? And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I suppose I see people say that, but it just means those home games, that's where you see teams like Man City, they just don't tend to drop points. They just, even when they're struggling, they tend to find ways of beating the likes of Nottingham Forest. And, you've seen United struggle there this season. That's where I think Liverpool they need to go into this run of games, be professional, and, if it's 1-0, 2-0, it doesn't have to be flashy. You just win those games and get out of them, and that's going to be so important. Let's pick our teams for this game. Theo, I'll let you start with the tough one in goal to Alisson. But, you're back 4.
Are we doing who I think it should be or who I want it to be?
Do it who you want it. It's your team, yeah. It's
my
your team. Yeah,
okay.
It's your team.
Trent at right back. Yeah. Konate's back in at centre back.
Yeah.
Van Dijk partners him. I'd go Joe Gomez.
Would you?
At left back. Like he's got the pace, and we're still not quite sure how this formation is going to fully work when they're all gelled in, when everyone's up to it. It feels like when you wanted that left-sided centre back, Gomez could be that answer. He's a bit more defensively inclined. He offers that pace, and it could get more out of Alexander-Arnold on the opposing flank, whether he's pushed into midfield or not. Now, I expect it to be Tsimikas. We all expect it to be Tsimikas. But when you've got Joe Gomez, who's started the season so well, he's got an argument for it as well.
Yeah, I can see a point for that. He hasn't played left back, has he, since his first few weeks at Liverpool, way back in.
He's had like the odd substitute appearance, but nothing major.
2015. But there is an argument to be made the way Liverpool play now that he could slot in there, but still expect Tsimikas to start, and Trent. And the Konate one, yes, just about over Matip, who hasn't really done much wrong.
I think I put Matip in. I just think this is going to be a Dyche dirty tricks type of game. And
Calvert-Lewin's gonna pull on to whoever isn't Van Dijk, isn't he, and try and get some change out of him.
Yeah, and I've just been impressed with Matip. Sort of, he's just been the experienced guy in defence, hasn't he, so far this season. He's done well in that sense, and I just think he might do well in this one against Everton. But I mean, it's a toss-up, really, isn't it? Konate's been excellent when he's played. Midfield, how are you going with that? Gorst, I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, there could be an argument for Endo, but Theo mentioned on the way back that he's played in Japan, whereas he played in Germany in the last international break, and I think that could make a big difference, really. Liverpool have made...
When did he get back, Endo, then?
He'd have been better situation than South Americans, because obviously they're ahead. Yeah. So their game here was like Tuesday morning. Yeah. So he'd have got back in good time, but it's still a long travel, jet lag and everything, and he's not played much football, has he?
Yeah. But Liverpool kind of went above and beyond, and they to organise things a little bit better than they did the previous international break. So the fact that McAllister's trained this week is a big plus for me. I'm still not 100% sold on him as a number 6 for the long term, but I think I'd be putting him in on Saturday with Jones suspended. His knees. Boslai's pretty much a shoe-in now, isn't he, a given? And then the other one, maybe going Gravenberg over Elliott.
This is where you can fall into the trap of overthinking it, thinking, oh, maybe put Elliott in just because he's played in derbies before, but I'll probably go with the same trio as Gorsty there. Again, with McAllister, I'm not 100% sold on him as this deeper option, but it would be a huge ask to put Endo in for, second Premier League start? Just you go and have that first taste of it. At least he's got that rhythm in the position now. Szoboszlai, non-starter, he always plays now. And Gravenberch has done well in glimpses. It's a big test for him, but he's still a physical midfielder, and we know it's going to be a big midfield battle. You'd fancy his chances in that. Yeah,
I mean, Japan travel has made me think a little bit about it, but I would probably be tempted to throw Endo in now. I think the time has come where we either know whether he sinks or swims, and this is a real test, but it's a test that Liverpool, the odds are in their favour. They're at home. I sort of like his style of midfield. I don't know whether he's quite ready for the pace, but I like the way he tries to pass the ball. And I think as well, for my worry for McAllister is the longer he plays in that position and the more teams target him and the more he struggles, whether that could have a knock-on effect in terms of his confidence. And I'd like to get him back out onto that left-hand side. So personally, I think the balance looks a bit better with Endo, McAllister, and then, like you say, Szoboszlai as a shoe-in.
It does feel like the sort of game where Endo, if he did start, could make himself a firm fan favourite. You could have like that Robertson Man City moment where, this is what we've signed.
Throw a tackling, win the ball, and the cop's going to react to that, and then that could be a bit of a lift-off moment for him. Yeah. I agree with you in terms of him on the ball. He does look neat and tidy. Yeah. The issue is he looks like he wants an extra second to do it.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's whether he can turn that, that he can settle in and get used to the pace and that extra second goes. Or, for some players it doesn't. For Fabinho, it was noticeable, and then it was gone, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was around this time, wasn't it? Maybe slightly later into November. But I remember, was it Napoli away in the Champions League when I remember thinking, Fabinho struggled there, or it might have been Paris. I remember there was a couple of games early doors that you thought he's just not quite with the pace that Liverpool need to play at, and then it clicked. And I'm just hoping for Endo, this could be a game in which it could click, or certainly help him. But I mean, again, it's a toss-up, isn't it? Forward line, fair few back available. Go on, Theo, you kick that off.
Salah, Nunes, I think sort of atmosphere he'd love, wouldn't it, the chaos?
Doesn't it? I mean, pick your team before I make a point.
And then you're probably going to have to go Jota, because you're going to be a bit anxious putting both South Americans in when they've had the travels, and I think Gakpo's only trained once, so it'd be a big ask to put him straight in. That's probably the trio to go for. Like Jota down the middle, he doesn't seem to have that same impact this year as Nunes does. And when we know what derbies are like, yes, Nunes could lose his head, but then he could also be the player that everything goes through, everything goes around, and he's the star of the derby.
Yeah, I was not expecting Gakpo to play. I think he will train today, and that'll put him in contention. But put him on the bench. The big question is Nunes or Jota. Fancy both of them, to be honest, in different ways. But I'm going to go with Nunes and Diaz on the left, and obviously Mo on the right.
See, that would be my three. I don't even understand why anyone is having a debate about Nunes at the moment. I mean, he's just put Brazil to the sword in a result that the whole of Uruguay is absolutely buzzing with. Yeah. He's got a great header, got a great assist. He just seems like he's a man in a moment, and I just don't understand why you would take him out of the team. I do think Jota will start. I think he might, like Theo says, he might start ahead of Diaz, so he doesn't put both South Americans, but I think you've got to get Nunes in there. Salah. Personally, I just prefer the balance with Diaz. I've never been a Jota from the start type of guy, but then if you bring him on with 20 to go, it wouldn't surprise me if he nicks a goal. And that's
he's not had a good season so far, but he's got 4 goals on his Salah scored more.
But I think that about Jota almost all the time. I never watch him play and go, God, he was great today.
Typical Jota game. What did he do? I can't remember, but he scored 2.
Has he got a decent record against Everton though, or am I just thinking of that one game at Goodison where we all sang about Rafa?
Pass, but I mean, it just. I mean, obviously Gakpo got his first goal against Everton last year, didn't he? So maybe he would come in.
Nunes is the only one. Oh, Diaz hasn't scored against him either.
No, but I just like the makeup. I think Diaz has got that left hand side.
Loads of pace in that front three. If you're going with Diaz.
Yeah, and then you've got Jota and Gakpo to come off the bench. I mean, you've got all the options. Quick prediction.
3-1 Liverpool.
Confident.
Yeah, reasonably so. It's at Anfield. No reason not to be.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I think Everton could nick one with the quality they've got in set pieces, Tarkowski and Calvert-Lewin in particular, but I think
Defensive
the bill will
uncertainty
be
as
too,
well.
I think the bill will be too strong for them.
Yeah, I think 2-1. I think it will be a little bit of a slog at times, but I fancy Liverpool just to get through it and sort of try and kickstart a decent run of games.
All the Royal Blue predictions?
I know them actually. Joe Thomas went for 1-1, diplomatic. Bees went for a 1-0 defeat for Everton, so a 1-0 win for Liverpool, and Conor O'Neill went for a 1-0 win for Everton. So got all three in there.
First one in front of fans this century.
Yeah.
I hope you've taken Connor off the rota for Monday, just in case they do win.
Well, yeah, I'll just take him off the road for good if they do. Right, before we go, I just want to say one more thing. Obviously, long-time listeners of the pod and readers of the Echo will remember Dan Kay, who sadly passed away earlier this year. On Sunday, the three of us, many other colleagues, plus former colleagues and friends of Dan, will be playing in a match at Jericho Lane in Dan's memory, and we'll be raising some money afterwards as well for three charities very close to Dan's heart, Mind and Hour for Others, who some people maybe remember from some of their work with Liverpool, and Imagine If Trust. If you follow any of us on social media, we've all tweeted the links at times, but there's a GoFundMe page. If you Google Dan Kay, I'm sure you'll find it. If anyone wants to contribute and put some money in that fund, it will be going to a very good cause, and we hope we do Dan proud. And we'll be back on Monday to talk the Merseyside Derby.
Talk how we've won that damn Memorial game.
Well, yeah, see if we've won that game, see if any of us managed more than 10 minutes, and see whether the Reds win the Derby. So, see you then. Ta-ra.